The Devil in Me is the fourth and last installment of Season 1 in the Dark Pictures anthology. The games have come a long way since Man of Medan, and even Until Dawn. I was hoping Supermassive Games would blow it out of the park with this bookend to the series, but to my dismay, it's just more of the same.
I'm coming with you.
Wait, do you have to go?
Be right back. Promise.
The story this time revolves around a group of documentary-style filmmakers who are all sort of down on their luck. They receive a call to investigate and document their time staying at a replica of H.H. Holmes' murder castle, a serial killer's own private estate where he set up death traps for unsuspecting guests. With nothing to lose, they figured they could either go big or go home, but unbeknownst to them, this replica building is more like the real thing.
What is going on? Are we locked in here?
The characters are Charlie, the producer who has a bad smoking habit and is way too dedicated to his craft than he should be. Kate, the presenter who's charismatic and charming, but who's not afraid to bite after she barks. Mark, the cinematographer who has past relations with Kate. Jamie is the lighting tech and her electrical knowledge comes in handy. Aaron is the timid sound engineer, and Grantham Dumet is the one who invited you and seems super fishy.
Okay, that's enough.
And cut.
We really do need to get going.
The Devil in Me looks as good as ever. Facial movements are great, and the detail in the clothing is a nice addition I would like to see in future games. While everything looks great, the Dark Pictures jank still remains. The eyes are still buggy. They still often just look weird and spastic. Sometimes when characters are talking to each other, one of the characters' eyes will just be focused on a random corner of the room for no reason. There are long, unnecessary pauses between characters talking, and sometimes dialogue runs over each other. So again, in games like these, characters can look incredibly good, but the game can still make them feel unrealistic by not portraying the characters realistically. Awkward moments while characters are talking to each other, especially during heavy emotional scenes, cracks the immersion wide open and can possibly ruin the gravity of the situation between characters and disconnect with the player completely.
A bunch of incoherent swearing.
Oh, I was awake. I was reading Kate's social media posts.
The game has 3 different difficulties: forgiving, challenging, and lethal, and the harder the difficulty, the harder the QTEs will be. There are a slew of accessibility options too that can help with more specific needs, like being able to make every QTE a single button or being able to hold a button down instead of having to mash it. The game again is split into chapters where you take turns taking control of the different characters. You walk around and interact with objects and other characters, building up relationships and creating your own personality, which then affects how others may react to you. Your decisions are then recorded in the bearings section just like in past games, and you can also find pictures of the future that can either help or hurt you. New to the series are little coins known as obols that the curator wants you to collect. You can use these to unlock models and the like back at the main menu. The collectibles that when picked up play a little lore movie that were in House of Ashes are back, but are done in a much more tasteful and meaningful way, so I have no complaints about those. Collecting items and making decisions are what you are mainly going to be doing in this game. The Devil in Me does add some new interesting gameplay elements into the mix, with now being able to jump and climb at points to traverse the terrain. Characters now have an inventory, with each character having a specific tool as well as they can use. For example, since Charlie is a smoker, he has a lighter, and since Erin is the sound engineer, she has the ability to use her sound equipment to hear things that others can't. This all sounds intriguing, but falls flat pretty fast when you realize there really isn't any creative way to use any of these tools as effectively as you may want. It almost seems that the direction of these games have been evolving gameplay-wise could make a fantastic open-world puzzle decision-making game, where these gameplay components could be fleshed out even more. In The Devil in Me, it almost seems as if it's a practice run for things to be.
Here on this island? Get down! With your family?
My wife she died.
The devil enemy's dialogue decisions seem a little too either this way or that way, and a lot less ambiguous like in past games. It isn't disastrous in any way, and even offers up a few nice surprises. The story starts off pretty fast, and I must admit, I was intrigued right off the bat. But the deadpan stares of the characters and the sudden scene transitions from cutscene to gameplay nullify the trip a bit. Like past games, the devil enemy runs pretty choppy, and I was expecting some bugs. Sometimes when the characters run into another room, the room won't be loaded completely. When I played on release, there was a weird button latency, like activating something in the game didn't match up with the button presses, so that was annoying at some points. There were some bad lip reading animations, and sometimes the characters never opened their mouths to drink. It's very typical at this point, but things like this should be ironed out and really cut deep after coming so far with the series and still seeing it.
Also, you're cute when you're worked up.
Characters, again, can't stand still. They won't stop moving. While they talk, they are flailing back and forth wildly, sometimes completely ending up off screen. I can see the decision to have them move so they seem more human-like, instead of just standing there like robots. But having their entire bodies non-stop moving while their eyes are going berserk actually does make them seem like robots.
Where'd it go?
This is the best the environments have ever looked. The detail of the jagged rocks is amazing, and even the water looks good this time around. I found the color palette of the world to be impressive as well. I didn't think I would be seeing the amount of different hues and the abundance of superb color mixing and tonal shifting through the use of these blending techniques. The sound and music is really good too, and really gives off almost a detective vibe, which makes sense being a group of reporters as well as being interested in keeping yourself alive. I think these factors of the environment looking good, as well as the music and sound being good, is what really sets this game apart from the other games in the Dark Pictures anthology, and is what helps pull the player into the world.
Hello? Mr. Demet?
While the game pulls you in immediately, it destroys any sense of immersion you might have with the characters having deadpan stares and sudden cuts from cutscene to gameplay. The Devil in Me is one of the longer titles in the Dark Pictures anthology, but I feel like these horrid scene transitions were a product of trying to move the plot along quickly to get to the action or interesting bits of gameplay, but in turn, it's just distracting me with how jarring the game is. Now's the time to make the world and gameplay more interactable, which I have a feeling they are heading towards. These games are just begging for more mystery to be involved, like having an unknown figure watching you from a mountaintop out in the distance. The worlds are just built for that, but I feel like there are so many missed opportunities that could really make these games much more compelling. With all that said though, I can't deny that this is probably the most I've been interested and gripped by a story ever since Man of Medan. While The Devil in Me is still haunted by the flaws of its series past, the improvements to the gameplay with additions like jumping, climbing, and an inventory system seems promising for the next season of the Dark Pictures anthology. The straightforwardness of the story hurts the pacing of how the scenes play out, but builds focus that keeps me guessing and interested in what is going to happen next. The Devil in Me is the conglomeration of what came before and the hope of what there is to come.
What's he doing?
I give The Devil in Me a 7.5 out of 10.
The hell?